We are back with another race breakdown, and today we're going to look at the Nairobi Continental Tour Men's 1500. Just happened this past weekend where Abel Kipsang ran 3:31, a very impressive mark, fastest in the world this year, but even more impressive when you consider the conditions and how it was run at altitude and actually look at how this race unfolded. So Kipsang is going to be there in third in the blue. You're not going to have any trouble picking him out as this race develops. He tucks in behind two pacemakers. This was a pretty solid field as well. Ronald Crimoy was scheduled to run. Charles Samatwa was scheduled to run. Paul Chelimo, the three-time American medalist, in there. You see him on the outside, made his way into this race. So this was a good early season test for Abel Kipsang. And the pace on the broadcast, they said they wanted something 334 range, and they got just that. Solid early lap pacemaking by the Rabbits. We'll keep track of the paces as we go along here, but what made this really spectacular was when the Rabbits exited the track and what Kipsang did after that. So this first lap, they're going to go through 400 in 57.82, and Kipsang, as I mentioned, is in there in third place behind the Pacers. So solid early start to this effort. Let's take a look real quick at Kipsang and where he sits in kind of the pecking order right now that we have in the men's 1500. He's been a big meet performer the last couple years. Now, 2019, let's just start with his history here. First results that we have from him, 2019, 800 runner. 2020, obviously that year did not have as many meets, so we only have a few 1500s, although he runs a 335 at altitude, which is pretty impressive. Then we get to 2021 with the Olympics, and maybe first people's introduction to Kipsang was at the Olympics, where he ran 331 to break the Olympic record in the semifinals. Now, distance races and Olympic records, sometimes they're off because a lot of the races are tactical, but 331 in the semi, and then he comes back and runs 329, misses out on the medals, fourth place, but runs 329. And then we go to this season in the indoor year, and he pretty solid. 336 is his opener in the 1500, and then he goes on to finish third at the World Indoor Champs in the 1500 behind Tefera and Ingebrigtsen. So he's done really well in his career so far at major championships. And the question is he one of those guys who can now make that leap and bridge the gap from everybody else to Timothy Cheruiyot and Jakob Ingebrigtsen? There's a group of about 3 or 4 there who I think are capable of making that jump. And this race just goes to show you why. So we're still somewhat together here. Pace, single file, Kipsang in third, as I mentioned before. And we're going to get this next split. And the pacemakers did a good job moving this along. It says 800 right there. The 800 split's actually going to be coming up around the bend at that 1500-meter start line. And then we'll get a better indication of just how quickly they're running. The first pacemaker is off. So now Kipsang is into second. They're going to go through, so 152.95. So that split about 55 seconds. So they got things going on the second lap. So the pace evened out there a bit, 57.8, then a 55. Not bad pacemaking early on. This is what they asked for, again, when they're targeting that 334. And 334 would be really impressive at altitude. The fastest time ever run at altitude. We'll check that over here. Ronald Crimoy, as I mentioned, 330.89 in Nairobi, 2017. Timothy Cheruiyot ran in that race, ran a 331 as well too, but there's never been a run faster at altitude than that. You go through these all-time lists, you see the familiar locations, the Zurichs, the Oslos, you know, the sites of the big meets around the globe, the Diamond League finals, Belgium, Zurich, Brussels, etc., etc. So Eugene, of course, in the mix as well too. So Nairobi, yeah, they're hosting this meet with these big names, but it is tough to run a quick time at altitude. So we're going to see how good Kipsang can be on this track. Last pacer steps off with 500 to go. So they got him pretty much where they wanted him, setting the table for a fast finish. So keep an eye on the bell. 236.95. Again, that's not 1200. 1200 will be around the bend. This lap actually slowed, and that's a bit confusing because he's separating himself from the rest of the pack. But that just goes to show you that 55 on that second lap really strung things out. So 250.9 for Kipsang And again, that's a 58 for that third lap. And then watch what happens next. The lead just grows and grows and grows. Abel Kipsang is running this section as if they had just run a series of 60-second quarters, not quarters that were sub 60, the way he just absolutely takes off from the rest of this field in the last 300. I mean, look at the gap that he has formed between everybody else at this point. Now it's just a question of what's the time going to be, because he has completely opened it up on this last stretch. Again, this looked like he was running off a tactical pace, not a fast one. Crosses the line, 3:31.02. So that last quarter, 54.07 for Abel Kipsang. So 58 and then a 54.07 from the bell lap to the finish. Kenyan president reacts. He's very excited. And then you look, let's go to the results here. So through 1200, 250.91. That means that last 300, about 40 seconds for Abel Kipsang. What a run for him. So 3:31.01, second fastest time at altitude in history. You can pull up the conversions. I'm not going to do all the math for you, but you have the NCAA conversion charts, and you can apply that to Nairobi, and you can see, all right, this is, converts to a 325 high. The question now is Abel Kipsang a guy who can challenge Cheruiyot and Ingebrigtsen? I mean, he's making a strong case. He's been consistent in championship races, the last two that he's been in. He gets fourth at the Olympics, then he gets third at the World Indoor Championships, and now he's putting on the dominant type of performances that you like to see if you want to see that gap bridged between the top tier, which is Ingebrigtsen and Cheruiyot, and the rest of the pack. Now, Tefera beat him at World Indoors. He's in that group as well, too. Josh Kerr beat him at the Olympics. He's in that group also. So he's not alone in contending for that bronze medal up into that silver or potentially gold medal position. But how can you not watch this race and be impressed by Kipsang's performance? Again, fastest time in the world this year, second fastest time ever in the 1500 at altitude. Keep an eye on Abel Kipsang. He has not been on the scene very long, only been running 1500s since 2020. So he still has a lot of room to grow. Could be a future star in the sport, and we're going to see him much more this year around the circuit. Well, that's it for this edition of the Race Breakdown. Be sure to subscribe to the FloTrack YouTube page for more. We'll see you next time.